In Peru, the Congress of the Republic approved the law of shared tenancy. A new shooting in North Carolina, U.S. left at least 5 people dead and several injured. And the Parliament of Iraq elected on Thursday the Kurdish politician Abdul Latif Rashid as president of the country. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Peru, the Congress of the Republic approved the law of shared tenancy, a measure that has been protested by various national sectors as a step backwards in the rights of children. The measure, presented by the Fujimoristas deputies, was approved by 78 votes in favor, 28 against, and 18 abstentions. The legislation indicates that when parents separate, custody of the children must be assumed by both, regardless of the history of abuse that may exist between one of the parents and the children. The bill was protested by governmental institutions, arguing that it goes against the best interests of the children and adolescents. In Colombia, murders against social leaders continue. On Wednesday, the 143rd murder so far in 2022 was recorded. The victim was identified as Silvio Lanzaduri Castillo in the department of Putumayo. Silvio Lanzaduri Castillo was a member of the community council located in the village of Villanueva in the municipality of Mocoa in the department of Putumayo. Castillo was intercepted by an armed man while riding his motorcycle, causing his death. For its part, the Ombudsman's office issued the early alert number of risk for the elections of mayors and governors, in which it points out that there is social control by illegal armed groups, which may cause intrusions and imminent risks. The Caribbean community offered to mediate a dialogue between the conflicting parties in Haiti after Prime Minister Ariel Henry called for foreign intervention to solve the humanitarian, economic, political, and national crisis. The CARICOM leaders assured that there is a willingness to promote dialogue and consensus building in Haiti to end the political impasse. They also detailed that their proposed assistance includes institutional development and the implementation of free and fair elections, provided the necessary conditions are met, and the establishment of a framework for long-term social and economic development. Furthermore, the bloc made it clear that the initiatives will not become effective until the issue of insecurity that persists in that nation is resolved. Now we move on to other topics. A United Nations commission arrived in the city of Las Tejerias to accompany the coordinated delivery of humanitarian aid to the population affected by the landslide. The delegation, composed by the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and the WHO Regional Office, established the alliance so that the collected supplies can be delivered to the affected families. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez informed that after holding a meeting with the multilateral organization, they agreed on the mechanisms to facilitate the deliveries. The official also stated that they are advancing to be able to attend to the damages in that community, at the same time that the search and rescue work will be maintained. Likewise, the president of the Venezuelan parliament thanked other nations for their expressions of support, as well as the willingness of multilateral organizations to help, in view of the landslide that took place in Las Tejerias in Aragua State.
Assembly, without any doubt, much more the Bolivarian government has received expressions of condolences, compassion and accompaniment from brother countries, from Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, Turkey, the Russian Federation, We have also received expressions of help from multilateral organizations. We have received news from them. And of course, just as Venezuela is always one of the first to move forward and contribute in the face of natural tragedies suffered by other brotherly peoples of the world, we are grateful for the expressions of solidarity we have received so far. Thank you.
The Iguazu Falls, on the border between Brazil and Argentina, registered on Wednesday a flow almost 10 times higher than usual, which forced the closure of one of the main tourist bridges of the Brazilian side. The volume of the falls reached 14.5 million liters of water per second on Wednesday night, following heavy rains in the southern Brazilian state of Paraná, according to Emerson Augusto, the park's communications coordinator. The Civil Defense of Paraná reported on Wednesday that 24 municipalities were affected by severe rain events, with floods that left more than 1,200 people displaced and almost 400 houses damaged. The flow recorded this Wednesday at the falls is the highest since June 2014, when 47 million liters per second were reported. We'll take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. A new shooting in North Carolina, the United States, left at least 5 people dead and several injured. According to local media, a gunman opened fire in a neighborhood in the city of Raleigh. Witnesses reported seeing a white male, possibly a teenager, who was armed with a long-barreled shotgun. A retired police officer was among the dead, according to reports, while shots were fired at multiple locations. 2 others, including a K-9 officer, were taken to hospital for treatment. In this context, according to the Independent Gun Violence Archives Agency, at least 531 mass shootings have been reported so far this year. The suspect, whose identity was not being released, was taken into custody. And the U.S. jury on Thursday rejected the death penalty for Nicholas Cruz, who shot and killed 17 people at his former Florida high school, opting instead for life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Cruz stared down with no expression at the defense table as the verdict was read, while several relatives of the victims in the gallery shook their heads in disbelief. The jury deliberated for a full day Wednesday and briefly on Thursday before deciding that Cruz should receive life in prison for the February 2018 murders of 14 students and 3 staff members at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Portland, Florida. A death penalty recommendation needed to be unanimous, and one of more than the 12 jurors found that it was not justified because of mitigating circumstances.
The jury unanimously find that the state has established beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the aggravating factor.
And lawmakers probing the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol voted on Thursday to subpoena former President Donald Trump to testify on his involvement in the violence in a major escalation of its sprawling inquiry weeks before it's due to wind up. The House panel of 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans agreed unanimously to compel Trump's appearance before investigators. Subpoenas from the panel have proved difficult to enforce. Trump is notorious for his ability to run down the clock on congressional investigations and legal action, and it remains highly unlikely that he will agree to give evidence. Any subpoena will expire in any case with a new congressional term in January. The House of Representatives is expected to be flipped in November elections to the Republicans, who plan immediately to end the investigation. And the Russian President Vladimir Putin held a trilateral meeting with Kyrgyz and Tajik presidents Sadir Saparov and Emomali Rahmon on Thursday. At a meeting on the sidelines of the SICA summit in Kazakhstan, Putin noted that both countries were among the closest allies and strategic partners of Russia. We are interested in seeing that such conditions for progressive, positive development are maintained or, where necessary, created, Putin said. Also on Thursday in Astana, Putin met his Azerbaijani counterpart Ilham Aliyev. Opening the bilateral meeting, Putin commented on the close ties between the two countries and said that he hoped to discuss issues related to the settlement of the situation in the region, among other things.
Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan are among our closest allies. We work very closely within the framework of international organizations, and of course we are strategic partners. It's enough to say that 1 million citizens of Kyrgyzstan live, study and work in Russia, and 2 million citizens of Tajikistan also work and live in the Russian Federation.
During the meeting, the Russian president referred to Russia as one of Azerbaijan's leading trade and economic partners.
Russia remains one of the leading trade and economic partners of Azerbaijan. The turnover is growing. Last year, it grew, in my opinion, by 14%. This year, for the first 7 months, by more than 7%. Our economic operators have invested $4.5 billion in the Azerbaijan economy.
Now we move on to other topics. United Nations nuclear chief Rafael Grossi said there remains an urgent need for a protection zone around the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
Saying very clearly that a protection zone is needed urgently. There has to be a recognition that this nuclear power plant cannot be a military target of any sort, in any way, intended or unintended. So this is why we are trying to work on a perimeter, we are trying to work on a way that can exclude it from any exchanges. And this is the basis of what I discussed there and what I'm discussing here.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break. So stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Parliament of Iraq elected on Thursday the Kurdish politician Abdul Latif Rashid as president of that country. The parliamentarians pointed out that after 4 processes of discussion in the legislature, this appointment will pave the way for the formation of a new government and will put an end to a year of political impasse. Abdul Latif Rashid, 78, is a UK-trained engineer who served as Iraq's Minister of Water Resources from 2003 to 2010. Rashid will have 15 days to invite a candidate from the parliamentary bloc to join in the government. The agreement on Rashid comes after negotiations between the State Administration Alliance, the Kurdistan Democratic Party, and the Patriotic Union. On Thursday, Lebanese President Michel Aoun announced his country's approval of U.S.-brokered maritime border deal with Israel, unlocking significant offshore gas production for the eastern Mediterranean neighbors.
After the Israeli government announced its approval, I announced the approval by Lebanon of the final version prepared by the American mediator to delineate the southern maritime border.
An explosion killed at least 9 people on a bus in central Mali on Thursday, in a region particularly rocked by jihadist violence, according to police and local sources. The bus was struck by a blast on the road in the Mopti area on the early afternoon. A police officer who spoke on condition of anonymity gave a provisional toll of 10 dead and many seriously injured. Mali is struggling with a long jihadist insurgency that has claimed thousands of lives and forced hundreds of thousands from their homes. Mines and improvised explosive devices are among the jihadist weapons of choice. They can explode on impact or be detonated remotely. In the southwest of Niger, on the border with Benin, the continent's nearly 2,000 kilometers long cross-border oil pipeline is taking shape. The pipeline will connect the oil wells of the Agadam deposit to the Beninese port of Seme. Chinese and Nigerian workers carry giant steel pipes over earth mounds as heavily armed soldiers keep guard. Climate protesters call for an end to investment in carbon-spewing fossil fuels. But in Niger, the world's poorest country, this project is seen as an economic lifeline. More than 600 kilometers of pipeline has already been built, and Niger is only on track to sell crude on the international market from next July, according to the Ministry of Oil and Energy. More than 700 soldiers were deployed to ensure the security of the project. On Thursday, the International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva and the World Bank Group President David Malpass warned about the risk of stubborn inflation and sound the alarm over poverty in low-income countries.
We have identified 48 countries that are particularly severely impacted by food insecurity. You wouldn't be surprised that quite a large number of them are in sub-Saharan Africa.
So the global environment, as you know, is very challenging. In fact, it's grim for developing countries. I think there's a crisis facing development. We put out our poverty numbers last week, so showing 70 million more people in extreme poverty and median.
Heads of the National Statistic Offices of BRICS countries issued the 2022 edition of the joint statistical publication during their 14th meeting via video link in Beijing. The new edition of the publication, jointly edited by China's National Bureau of Statistics and the statistical agencies of the 4 other BRICS countries, comprehensively reflects the economic and social developments conditions of the countries and provides important information for cooperation and exchanges among other member countries. The met around the application of the big data in government statistics. The meeting proposed to continue to reinforce statistical cooperation among BRICS and study effective approaches to tackling emerging problems and challenges in the progress of statistics in a bid to propel socio-economic advancement on the member countries. And the planet lost on average about 70% of its wild animal population in nearly 50 years, according to the assessment of the World Wildlife Fund published on Thursday, which establishes an increasingly clear relationship between biodiversity loss and global warming. The destruction of natural inhabitants, in particular to develop agriculture, remains the main cause, according to the report, followed by overexploitation and poaching. Climate change is the third factor, followed by air, water, and soil pollution, as well as the spread of this invasive species by humans. This report is a red alert for the planet and for humanity. To reverse the curve of biodiversity loss and mitigate climate change, the report calls for intensified conservation and restoration efforts, more sustainable food production and consumption, and decarbonization of all economic sectors. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.